G'day and welcome to the Inforunners. I'm Execute, joined today by Old Man Hurst himself, Algared. How you doing, buddy?
I'm alive. It's going well.
I'm barely.
All I can say.
Barely. No. All right. Well, things are full of steam for CitizenCon, where I'm starting to pack my bags and stuff now. It's getting real, Algared. So they've dropped an IRC today on us, engineering one. So we're going to watch that now. I'll kick us over. What do you think this is about? Besides engineering, obviously.
Well, hopefully it's about expanding out where engineering is going.
Right.
So we saw the basics where it was just fixing components. Hopefully we're showing us where it's going.
So an updated version of CitizenCon type thing.
Yep.
Yeah, I hope so too. That's what I'm looking forward to. All right, let's kick it off.
Engineering, the next major step forward in multi-crew gameplay.
Something's different.
He's had a shave and a haircut.
Yeah, it's like not uncouth. It's bizarre. He's disgraced the hobo nature. He can no longer be a part of my club. You are out.
He's obviously, it's getting real for him. CitizenCon is just around the corner.
Yeah, baby faced and he looks 10 years younger. Thanks, Mega Shave.
Yeah. Oh, look. When I started teaching, they used to say, grow a beard. It adds 10 years to your life. So it'll actually, young male teachers grow a beard. They get a bit more gravitas. And
just in case my mum's watching, I told Mum your age the other day, and she went, "What?"
Yeah.
She's like, "What?" Like she was surprised how young you were. Anyway, all right, let's continue.
Built on top of the in-development resource networking system, itself a harbinger of fire and a new reality for all life aboard spacecraft. It's been the subject of CitizenCon presentations, Q&As on Star Citizen Live, explorations on Inside Star Citizen, and fervent discussion by many of the content creators in our community. And on this final episode of ISC before hiatus and we turn all of our attentions towards CitizenCon, we invited Torsten, Bastian, and Guillermo to update us once again on the current intention and implementation of engineering, and what you can expect when the first iteration makes its way into the persistent universe.
The resource network enables us to actually give you the gameplay that you were always looking for, which is having meaningful multi-crew gameplay, which means that it really makes sense to have multiple people running around on your ship, and that wouldn't be possible without the resource network.
I think for me, Algared, this is kind of like the crux of moving from the multiplayer part here of the difference between the game we've had before now and what's about to come. This is the stuff that makes all the multi-crew stuff really important. And for me, this is what separates Star Citizen from all the other games before it. Not to mention 100%. All the other tech, but this is the big fundamental difference.
Like you see kind of hint of that desire of multi-crew gameplay in games like Pulsar, Lost Colony, and I think Black Wake or that, where the crew has to work together to keep the ship going, to do repairs, to even make it work. But yeah, it's one of those things that make having a multi-crew ship so much better than having a single seat fighter or even a Hurricane or it changes the dynamic, it changes the need.
Yeah.
But at the moment, anyone else on a multi-crew ship is just a glorified gunner.
Well, two things there, just from what you said. Even the most fun you and I had together are things that have that multi-crew element, right? Even like you mentioned, the Hurricane. I think the only other thing I'd is there's another game coming called Jump Ship. Yeah, Jump Ship. Yep. And that will do the same thing as Black Wake and the other games you mentioned. So yeah, I totally agree with you on those points. All right.
So we say that the resource network is a system that allows all the items and components that are part of the ship to talk to each other.
Every ground vehicle, every base, everything that runs in Star Citizen with resources.
Notice that?
Yeah, campaign bases, but you and I assumed that anyway.
Yeah, like it's something we've been saying because it just you join the dots. It was blatantly obvious, and you've seen snippets of that in ISC when they were doing, the base of the Empiro. But it's always nice to hear.
Well, that goes way back to the episode we did on the room systems for space stations. Yeah. It's just taking that analogy we had what, 4 or 5 years ago now, and essentially it makes lighter work by sharing the one system across multiple things. It's a ship, it's a room, it's a whatever you need it to be.
Whatever once you use the room system, every ship, every space station, every outpost, every cave,
essentially
every planet can be.
Why reinvent the wheel? You know?
Yeah.
Fundamentally, Resource Network is a replacement for the pipe system we had in the past that you may have heard about.
We chose a similar system, basically doing most of what we're doing right now with the Resource Network, but in a way that was not as scalable as what we intend to do.
Landing complete.
So right now we just have one type of hydrogen fuel, but if we want to extend that in the future to having like multiple types that have some specific benefits on the thrusters, it's very easy now to add that resource. It's just a data setup.
So Resource Network.
On that point, that goes back to when they brought out the 100i.
Yeah.
And they talked about the air system being able to process different types of fuel and other ships being able to process the fuel. And whereas some ships could only process one type, others could gather in different types of gas, neon or hydrogen or whatever, and use those for the
It even leads into things that you and I have theorized, like different energy types, like energy or fuel or what stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, like we talked about with the Titan suits as an example. So we'll see.
The underlying technology for the system to work, and engineering is the gameplay we intend to have on top of this technology so that players may experience it.
Your ship flies because, the thrusters get fuel, the power plants output power that the weapons and the sails and also the thrusters use. Engineering is all about both maximizing the use you get out of the resource network and also getting the resource network itself going so that you're not dead in the water.
It's all things that players will be able to interact with. They will have to dedicate roles in their ships so that crew members are assigned to fixing those issues and they can encounter more dynamic situations that will not happen in the previous systems.
The goal right now is to have all the components on the ship being physicalized. That means that the things that will take damage will be the components. That then means that those components are reasons to the failure of your ship.
We have the power plants, which generate the energy that your ship consumes. You have the shield generators, which take in some of that energy to convert it to shield power. You have a radar system that allows you to target the signatures of ships around you. You have coolers that generate a coolant resource.
It is all the weapons that you have, it's the quantum drive, but there are also new components that will be added to the mix, and that is the relay with its fuses. Then there's the life support generator. The biggest thing we are aiming for is switching from your health pool of the bespoke ship to just moving that completely over to the physicalized component. So damaging the component is damaging your ship.
That's huge. That's that fundamentally means that like everyone won't have the same HP pool anymore, and components will actually actively start to matter. And that's just on health. And then you add all the other components, you start to see the mix, yeah? So obviously your ship will give you some kind of base stat that'll be modified by every component.
Yeah, and then that changes, those choices in terms of do I take the A grade, the D grade, the C grade, do I take engineering, military, civilian, racing, all of those different choices really come into the mix then.
Well, to modify that, does it start to matter if it's an industrial ship? So it prefers industrial components. Like, is there favoritism between components for each ship, and that's unique to each ship? That's questions I have, but we'll see where it goes.
Yep.
I think this is the part where the biggest change for the players happen, because there the gameplay of repair comes in, and then you can revitalize your ship. So you can actually use your formerly dead in the water ship after exchanging or repairing the components. So we mentioned one of the new components, which is the life support generator. So let's talk about life support.
the life support does all the tasks necessary to maintain the life support inside the ship.
So it's the temperature, it's the atmosphere composition, it's the pressure inside the room. Your main responsibility is making sure that there's always enough life support resource produced to maintain a healthy atmosphere in the ship. So making sure that all the CO2 that you breathe out is actually converted into O2 again. Or if you vented a room, that the room is filled again. If your room is getting too hot, it's cooled down again. So it's all about managing this resource inside the rooms.
It's starting to hurt my head, Algared, with all the different combos I'm starting to, that are flying through my head.
My question in terms of the you vent in a room, like if you vent the atmosphere to space, does that, and you haven't redrawn the stuff back into tanks or anything like that, there's going to be that limited resource in terms of the oxygen and those things that you've got in your ship. So
could you waste it by doing it repetitively?
Yeah, do you waste a bit like
well, it depends on how oxygen's generated. Does it come from tanks or does it come from a component? Or they haven't kind of really stated that, have they? So I assume it's some kind of component because I've never really seen a whole bunch of tanks on ships. Again, that's a really good question that I do not have an answer to, quite honestly.
It reminded me a bit like Helios with the way, you know, you had to get keep your oxygen tanks filled, and every time you vented, if you didn't pull everything back into your tank, you know, depressurize first and then open up, you actually lost so much of your oxygen, and things got blown out of a ship and caused damage. So I can see all of that type of gameplay coming in as well, and it becomes
it's definitely
exciting.
It's definitely opening up ships to more weak points. So like he's talking about the life support system right now, but I'm like, you know, traditionally we've been dealing with health and shields, right? But if I attack the life support, you all need to have helmets on. But do I also disable the health, the life support, so it's harder for raiders to come aboard? And you see where I'm going with this, right? Like it's that's just 3 components I've mentioned in this. Like,
even just little things, like I can remember when they did that classic Constellation versus the 3 fighters, and they had that cut scene before it started, where they blew a hole in the conning. Yeah. And the ship was depressurizing. The guy had to hit his magnum boots just so he could get out of the area to seal it up. It brings in that type of gameplay, and you know,
absolutely,
it's that type of stuff I think people have looked forward to. I certainly look forward to that type of expansion of gameplay.
It's the whole simple to learn, hard to master type thing, and because of the cross pollination of all the different components, there's only about 6 to 7. I don't know how many categories. Roughly at the moment 6 to 7, but the cross pollination of all those is what makes it really complex. And then, as I said, chucking different ships in would also affect different components. Like, I'm just really curious to see how deep that goes, but I've got to imagine it's really deep.
I'm hoping it's deep, because one of the things that appeals to me about this is, like, people who aren't into FPS could be on a multi-crew ship doing, you know, maintaining a ship and keeping the ship going, while the ship itself is actually doing FPS type, you know, the PvP type combat.
Absolutely.
Whereas the person who's not necessarily into it, they're just keeping the ship going. They're not engaged in the fighting. They're not engaged in the stuff that they feel they lack at.
Yeah,
but they're still doing that PvE type.
What you're describing is it takes all types.
Yeah,
that's absolutely correct, and that's what makes a good game. Space Tomato said it many times. There's got to be things in this game you're going to hate, but the other way to look at that is it's got to appeal to as many people as possible. And it's very hard to make a game for everyone, because usually when you make a game for everyone, it appeals to no one. But again, the more you can appeal to, and people still have the gameplay they enjoy, the more people. It's not going to appeal to everyone, but it allows it to appeal to a broader range of people.
Yeah, and I think those multi-crew ships where you've got this depth of repair, you know, like just on hearing what they're saying, you know, this idea of, I only need 1 person running around my Redeemer, you might get to a point you're saying, I need 2. The other one that concerns me is ships like the Mercury, where all the components are smack bang together, and that makes it great for repair, but it also means if something goes wrong,
again,
all those areas are in trouble.
I think mistakes like that you describe basically show them learning as they go along. And we can see that there's every ship that comes after the last has improvements.
Yeah.
And they've gone back at that and gone, oh, it doesn't have 2 entrances. Ooh, how silly,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So I think when they redo that, and you and I have even said the components should be distributed through the vents underneath.
Yeah.
To give a reason for the vents to exist.
And I reckon that's what we'll see. But you can see those issues with the placement of things. It's almost as if initially, we've got to have this in, so let's just put it here. It's just time, give this room some value. But yeah, it's anyway. Let's keep going.
Yeah. All right.
And as already mentioned in the previous episodes, its life support management is also a good way to counter fire. Another aspect the players have to counter or react to is misfires on components.
Misfires are something that is already in the game in some form. Thruster charges, seal generator fail.
I have seen misfires on my ship. I don't know if you've seen them, Algared, just like you'll start the engine and one of them will be a bit weird and then it'll go normal. Have you seen that yourself?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or stuff like that, or just expanding it a bit. And pretty much the idea is that, items that are damaged, that are too hot, or that, for example, are very old and degraded, will start misfiring. In some cases, that will be that it will take some extra damage. In other cases, it will be that they will stop working for a while. Other times, they will work indefinitely until an engineer comes by and manages to do some repairs. And some of the worst cases would be starting a fire, or in the case of, for example, power plants, engaging in a critical reactor failure.
So it's not just repair; it's also maintenance. So you can't just leave something for years and years and years and never change it. That's what this is. It's giving that replayability essentially.
It's also that those people who fly their ship never. I've got a habit of, if I fly a ship or do something, I always hit do repair up when I land. Repair, refuel, etc. People who leave it and say, 99%, that's okay, I can leave it. 95%, that's okay.
Well, that's what the engineer's doing now. It's making sure everything's working, nothing's misfiring, everything's maintained. That's what he's doing during the flight.
That's what he's doing during the flight. But when you get to the station, you the idea about repair is restocking your supplies and making sure everything's there. So next time you go out, the engineer can keep doing that job. So
and a good engineer knows what parts he needs and stuff like that too.
And taking the ship with them.
There is a chance that if the power plant reaches 0 health, it will run into a critical failure, and that critical failure then will cause the entire ship to explode. It will give the player the time frame to react to that, so either by removing the component and throwing it out of the door and preventing your ship to explode, or even countering it by repairing the component and bringing it up to life again. For the initial release, we have a limited amount of misfires, but we are preparing the system, or we did prepare the system to scale well for the future, so we can introduce multiple misfires, and that leads us to damage penetration.
So damage penetration is a simplified version of what we'll be getting eventually with a more physicalized system, but essentially what it means is that now certain types of weapons can penetrate through the hull of a ship. This is a function of the weapon itself, its penetration values, and also of the armor of the ship, which can be depleted over time.
So what I'm hearing here, Algared, and I heard it earlier too, was the initial reaction by a lot of other content creators was how scared they were of how complex engineering was going to make it, that you just couldn't play the game. And I know there was others like ourselves that have been here long enough and can start to see the sum of its parts. So you remember the episode we did, like pulling it all together? That's what I'm seeing. It's all these systems they've talked about for the last decade literally all coming together.
All coming in. And I think it is just pulling it all together and everything now coming in to make that whole.
It's almost
and I can see people will freak out over the complexity of what it takes to fly a ship or a multi-crew ship.
It's not just engineering, but engineering is almost like the glue that pulls all the systems together. They've talked about all the individual parts, but as we've always said, it's always hard to hold it in your head and pull it all together and hold it there. But this is the system. The resource system is what ties it all together.
So if you use ballistics, you have a higher penetration, which allows you to cut through the armor more deeply and touch the components inside the ship directly.
One thing I was going to say before, and when you were talking, it made me forget, but he brought it back in. when they're talking penetration, the ammo for the ships, that also to me says armor has to be implemented because you actually got, and he even mentioned the different armors of ships will impact the penetration of ships. So that if they're bringing that in now, that indicates to me that they're working
on
or
armor.
they're actually putting the armor across ships as well. So
yeah, as we said earlier, there are massive fundamental changes afoot.
And it's that part of that resource, all the things coming together to make it a whole. And I think, as you said, we're now at that point where we're seeing all of those things.
Yeah. I also just see that certain people are only seeing one part and freaking the hell out. They can't see all the parts coming together. And I think some people are really freaked out because there's these massive changes where we're moving from a game that was essentially like a little dogfighting module, or that's kind of been this little test bed that we've been looking at, why they build Squadron 42, to actually building the game they've been talking about all this time. They've been stuck in this little game.
Yep.
And it's now expanding what they've been talking about. It's almost like they haven't been listening the last decade. And they're just, now we're going to be doing this, and we told you about it for 10 years, and now they're implementing, and people are freaking the hell out.
But you've been talking about this, but we just thought, even though you've been talking about it every day or every week or every year, we just thought you were joking.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's nothing here that's new. It's just literally been design documents up to this point for 10 years. So
I like you said, I can't think of anything they've said in this episode so far that seems to be new in terms of what we'd heard and planning or saying. This is where we're going and this is where we're heading.
Absolutely.
What is new though is the implementation of it. It's the implementation of all those plans are now coming to fruition. And it's like, look, it's almost like what you've said in the past, or what we've said in the past. They've been working on the tools in the background and getting everything ready so they can then
build the game on top.
Yeah.
I was about to say the same thing, so I'm with you. Yeah.
Close to this, you also have energy weapons, which will be more effective at melting down the armor.
The goal here is that you first need to bring down the armor health value.
Did you notice on that ship armor?
Yes, I did. But he said energy weapons will be more effective at taking down armor. That's the opposite of what I thought it would be. I thought ballistics would be better and energy would have been better as it shields. I'm actually going to go back and play that again. Just listen.
You also have energy weapons, which will be more effective at melting down the armor.
I found that weird. I just always assumed, because ballistics went partially through shields and then hit the hull, I just always assumed that the energy weapon, because right now the energy weapons are way better at just removing shields than ballistics are. So I find that really strange.
I always thought it was the reverse, because the energy weapons melted the shields but the ballistics force the shields to actually do more to try and stop it get through. But
then they hit the hull, and I thought they'd do more damage when they got through. So I don't know. It's interesting.
They'll work out whatever system they use. Energy weapons will damage armor. Ballistics will damage armor. Both will damage shields. One will do it better than the other, and they'll just balance it the way they need it to make it do the way they want. So at the end of the day, that's kind of
it'll balance out. Yeah.
And neither here nor there, but seeing the Star-Lancer ship armor, that's new. We haven't seen that on our ships before, but armor
do you mean
is
Freelancer, not Star-Lancer?
Sorry, Freelancer. But the Freelancer ship armor there,
you got your games mixed up.
We've never seen on our MFDs before.
Yeah, interesting.
The goal here is that you first need to bring down the armor health value to get to the fullest potential of your penetrating weapons. Then you can penetrate the ship and actually damage the components that sit inside the ship and not on the outside of the hull.
Obviously there's degrees to this. Larger ballistic weapons may have enough penetration against smaller ships that it will be able to penetrate directly, but it's all of a game of choices, and it's going to depend on your ships.
Okay, so that makes more sense now. So essentially it's almost like lasers are direct damage and ballistics have a chance to just penetrate the entire thing. Shields, armor, everything. But it does far less damage. So if you are a really good shot and know exactly where the component is, you can target an area. So you've almost got like low damage targeted with ballistics, and then just I'm going to whittle the whole thing down with lasers. And if you actually think about it, that makes sense because ballistics are limited. So you've got a short time to be accurate and to the point, or you run out, or you use lasers and you can just be there all day.
Yep. It also raises, like, even talking about the armor and that, it raises that whole thing we've talked about in the past about the size of your armor. Like, if you're a capital ship with, heavy armor, it's gonna, even if you're on a fighter and you've got lasers and you could theoretically take it down, you're going to be there, but not just the whole day. You're going to be forever just trying to melt that shield down before you can even do any other damage.
Well, you and I always theorized that shields would probably stop lasers more, and ballistics stopped. Armor stopped ballistics more, and they haven't said that, but that's where I think they're leaning. That's where I think it is. So certain ships, again, more prone to, to certain things.
But also the size of the ship and the grade of their armor is going to have an impact as well. And so ships like the Drake ships that have always been said to have thinner armor or less armor than other ships, I would expect we'll see that will actually swing against their multiple guns or their heavy guns. And so we'll see,
in a weird way,
that type of
armor's just another component, but it just doesn't have a component. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like where you got a shield, it's just physically on the ship. So it's a component without being one. But yeah.
But it's one of those components that you would repair when you go back to a spaceport. I wonder whether that's something you could actually also repair with your multi-tool, or you get the right parts and you apply it and fix it.
Can you even apply different types of armors to different ships as well, like the same ship, but like different brands and stuff like that? We haven't even got into that, but basically, I'm starting to see that instead of calling it components, you essentially want to call it the resource system, because that is what it is. They're all different resources that make your ship, and give you that essential HP pool, or whatever you want to call it. At the end of the day, it's all going to be affected by different things.
And when you talk about armor being a component, you notice that freelance ship armor was actually in the components list. So below you had your coolers and other things. So I think that's exactly what you said is exactly what we're going for.
And I think that's why
component.
I think that's why they're calling it resources, because it is all the resources of your ship, and components are physicalized, where there are other ones like armor that are not physicalized. So that's why they've called it resources anyway. All right, let's continue.
And your weapons.
So with damage penetration and misfires happening, that brings us to repair.
As your fight progresses and components take damage in your ship, it becomes the duty of some of your crew members to first investigate what are the issues caused by battle damage, and go there to physically replace the parts in your ship.
So you have your multi-tool, so you have the salvage and repair, and the repair part of it also affects now ship components, precisely like what you see in the Arena Commander mode. You will be able to repair items that were fully destroyed. You will not be able to repair the item to its fullest, so you cannot repair an item that got fully destroyed to 100% health again. So to repair your ship components to the fullest, you actually have to bring them to the shop again and do the station repair. Or if you did think ahead and brought spare items with you, you can simply exchange them to pristine new ones. But with the caveat, it only works, just as a reminder, for size 1 and size 2 components. Size 3 and above cannot be exchanged using the tractor beam detach and attach mode. So now that we looked at what your responsibilities are in the physical space running around in your ship, let's take a look at what you do on the virtual part, which is power management and analysis of your ship on the engineering screen.
So that just made it interesting, because the Redeemer changes. He just said you can't take size 3 ones out. So the shields were size 3, now they're size 2, so you can physically take them out.
The other thing that interests me is all the little fighters. Like, believe it or not, the 890 jump suddenly becomes a valuable ship. Because the little fighters can come in, you can actually take all the components out and put new ones in your carrier, any carrier. You can do that. Whereas, so you can actually repair the components up to a certain degree, but you can actually swap components out and put new ones in and bring that little ship back up to full stats again.
I think it's showing the limited range of fighters. That's what it's showing. It's showing that they're not going to be going across systems like they used to, because if they can't get back home again, they're stuffed.
And that's why the carrier ships liberate any ship with a hull that can take ships. or a hangar that can take ships becomes super valuable.
Yeah.
Just in that regard.
Yeah.
So yeah, and the fact that they can also carry extra components of that size in their cargo capacity is good. I like that. I like that cargo capacity around the 890 jumps landing bay.
I know I'm going to get flack for saying this, but it's proving our point of the earn down economy. It really is. Like, sell your fighters is, okay.
So the first thing that you will see is the 3D view of your ship that highlights the location of all the ship components and how they are actually connected, where the relay positions are, what's the status of the relays are. You will see the holograms of each component.
As you can see, they have different colors. What they are representing is the overall state of the item. So an item that is very damaged, or it's on fire, or it's not getting enough power will be in a critical state. Items that are less damaged, are receiving only partial resources, or are going through a misfire, may have moderate colors. And items that are otherwise fine will have the functional or blue colors.
The biggest change that happened to the engineering UI screen is basically the power management part of it. We moved away completely from slider control for every individual item. There is indicator now for fuel. This is not relevant for the initial release, but it will be relevant for the future. Next to it, you see the power plant. The power plant segments gives you an idea of how many power segments you can distribute to the ship items.
And on the right of each of the power bars, you can generally see the temperature bar. If it goes into overheating, the item will stop both consuming or producing, and it will be completely inoperable until it cools down again. So that means that assigning
essentially, it's a points distribution system. But just a really elegant, simple way to see it. I actually understand now why they've gone into this up and down system, and seeing it on the other MFDs, this is the missing link, because I saw a lot of people complaining about why they were like essentially graphs and stuff, but this is the other missing part. It's the same on every single, I'm trying to think of the word for that, but it's succinct. So it's the same on every single MFD basically.
But it also, like, even the way they're describing it, the fact that, you know, if you've got your power plant going at max power, it's generating heat, which means it's going to overheat and then shut down. But this also plays into, you know, you're trying to be stealthy, so you're going to lower everything down, so you're not producing as much heat. So I can see engineering having an impact on that. You may not be a stealth ship, but if I power everything down so I'm not giving off as much heat, or not glowing like a Christmas tree, then it is going to have an impact on how stealthy I am, or how much my IR signature is going to be picked up. So
well, you can see that on the screen, but here's the other thing: you can see your whole ship on one screen.
Yeah,
like it's just that is your ship simplified. It's crazy good if you think about it. How many games can you normally got to go into a couple of menus and look at different things? If you can just look at everything and go, there's the issue, fix that, we're done. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
power to your coolers in advance is probably a good idea if you are going into a fight.
All the items on your ship generate heat, so this is where you can see the amount of heat that each item has accumulated, and you can see the amount of coolant that you are producing and whether or not you are also running a deficit. So what you want to do is put as much power as you can into the coolers until your items do not overheat, but do not assign more resources than necessary because you are running a limited pool of resources.
Yeah, so that becomes the resource management, you see. So you turn the coolers down so you can turn the weapons up while you're in a fight, but then if you want to pump the shields back up. So this is what, you know how we always said, someone will be sitting in the cockpit doing stuff? That's the engineer. He's sitting there like, the shields are about to drop. You know, like he's pulling gears and levers, essentially, to get the shields back up.
Yeah, it's not just, it actually gives a co-pilot something to do. And I imagine even a co-pilot on a fighter, if they're not playing around with the guns, you know, that's the thing they can be doing, is modifying that power distribution and the resources that are available on the ship. And so even
I keep coming back to ships that even have the same gun loadout, they seem almost the same all these years, right?
Yep.
And you put the same components in them, but like an Anvil ship's going to operate differently to a Drake ship, and vice versa. Like one might be harder on components and the other will be easier. This system laid on top of everything we've had before, you can now just see,
Yep.
like, the complexity's gone through the roof, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Like, it's really simple to understand, but it's made it that chess thing where it, hard to master. And I really like that, because you will learn your ship, and a really good engineer might know 5 or 6 different ships and he's like all attack, but I don't think you'll ever meet an engineer that knows every single ship perfectly well, and it will take time for him to come up to speed with the nuances of each ship. I think that's really interesting. And
look, I think it bodes ill for the whales or the ship collectors who have everything, because you may know your ship a little bit, you will never know every ship 100%. Whereas someone who just has 1 or 2 ships, they're going to know hopefully they will know their ships inside out, back to front, upside down, So
right. Everyone can pour one out for those with those problems. Yeah. First world problems. There we go. Yeah. It's my glass is empty. Right. All right, let's go.
The same applies to the life support generators. So you have to make sure that you produce enough life support resource that the demand is fulfilled in your ship. If your demand isn't fulfilled, it will cause some failures.
There's also a notifications panel. Here the main warnings about the state of the ship will be displayed. If an item is damaged, doesn't get enough power, or is misfiring, it will create a warning. You will be able to see it as a notification. Take a look at it, go to the item, or just remove it.
So you have
so it's not even about finding out what's wrong. It tells you what's wrong. So you've just got to know how to fix it. So it's even simpler if you think about it. It's just knowing. And I even go as far to go, like, do you have multiple? I'm trying to give an example here. So maybe you have multiple shield types in the hull, and knowing what you're coming up and what you're going to do. Is it combat? Is it mining? Is there a nebula? What one do I put in?
Do I swap out my shield, or do I swap out my power plant? Yeah.
Do I have 2 shields and one's got more power than the other, and I toss between the 2 depending on what I'm doing? You start to see all the nuances here. It's crazy.
Do I pull out my size 2 military A-grade shield, or do I swap it out and put my Sukaron shield in, or do I put my civilian? Yeah, I can see that.
Or more power to one and less to the other. Because again, if you want, do they compensate for each other's weaknesses and shit like that? Like, you get where I'm going, right? The detail is insane.
Yeah, but even just that idea of you see the ship and you see the components in trouble, and okay, I've got to go there. Anyone who knows their ships really well, any engineer who knows the layout of a ship and knows how to get to those parts really well, they're going to be much better than an engineer who has a vague idea of a ship. And so, again, it comes back to knowing your ships well is going to be the major thing that really, if you've got 2 Polarises and one's got a crew where everyone knows where everything is, they're going to excel, and I would expect beat the Polaris that has a crew that's a hodgepodge pickup crew.
Well, now knowing this, the list that was dropped by John Crew last week, and now going back the difference between size 2 and size 3 components, on paper, some of those we were saying, some were buffs and some were not. It now goes the other way, because some that got turned into size 3s can't be removed, and ones that were dropped to size 2s can be removed. So that changes that whole episode we did again. And we'd have to go through that entire list again, Algared, and actually, because there's now pluses and minuses both ways. So until we kind of got the whole thing together, and we've said this before, how can you tell things when you don't know, they're not out? You can't connect all the jigsaw pieces. You only start to get the image right at the end, and that's where we're at the midway point. Until it's actually coming in and the pieces are all falling into place, I can't tell if it's a duck or a dinosaur.
We're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, but we don't know whether it's rainy out there or bright sunshine. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I was going to say
Notion that
something,
allows
but
you
I've
to
forgotten what I was going to say.
Well, if it comes back to you, let me know.
basically log the controls so that you or the pilot, which has access to the MFD, which shares some of the power management functionality, do not conflict with your controls. So by locking this, you are able to override the MFD settings to only have it being authoritative from the engineering station.
You are able to take the power assignment you have at a given time and save it locally.
Did you see that? There were presets. I'm just going to go back. So you can they've thought of everything. So combat, I can go into mining mode or whatever. I can just click it, and at a click of a button, I can switch to my favorite little setup. That's insane. That allows the engineers to just creme de la creme. They don't have to manually remember. They just have to be able to set them up. Joy. That's great.
Well, it's making it simple to use, difficult to master.
Absolutely. Can you save your presets and transfer them between ships? Can I, as the
I stole them on my Moby Glass,
best spirit engineer in the verse, can I sell my configs?
Yeah.
As a part of data. You get where I'm going with this, right? Can someone hack mine and steal them? Oh yeah, I stole this off Jeffrey Jones, the famous spirit racer pirate, or whatever, whatever he is.
Yeah, I've now got his racing setups.
Yeah, exactly. You hack in and find out their configuration and copy it for the race.
And I hack in and change them.
There we go.
Evil Al.
That one is a 0 now.
Yeah, that one is a 0 now.
You are able to take the power assignment you have at a given time and save it locally on your computer, meaning that when you fly again with this ship, or even if it's not your ship but somebody else's ship, you can quickly apply your presets. This is very useful in the middle of combat. And you can quickly switch to.
Sorry, mate.
That answers that question for you.
Yeah, it was a given.
Yeah.
Combat preset where you will give, for example, more power to shields, weapons, and thrusters. Or at the same time, you may want to have some nap mode preset where you reduce the power to everything and just put it on the bare minimum so there's no degradation or misfires related to power use.
So you can set a preset on your ship and then jump on somebody else's ship and load it up?
Indeed. Your presets are stored locally, so as long as you have access to the screen and you're using the same ship, you can apply a preset. Obviously, if the components have changed or the ship has a different loadout, the preset might not apply perfectly and you might need to adjust it, but it gives you a quick baseline on how your power is assigned.
We hope that with these changes, players will have more varied opportunities to experience the game. We'll encounter more situations where it feels relevant and enjoyable to have multi-crew gameplay in the ships, so that you do not think it's just about filling in the battle positions like the turrets and the pilot seats, but it's more involved gameplay to actually manage your ships and try to fix the ongoing situations that occur within them. And we also hope that this makes larger vehicles, which have more interior space, both more troublesome but also more enjoyable to play with.
We are still working hard to get it done for all of you. There are ships that already have the functionality. There are still ships that we are working on. But overall, we are super excited to finally get it into the PU. So the Arena Command Experimental Mode was already fun to observe what you can do with the entire system. And now with having the feedback from that, adjusting the gameplay a little from the feedback that we received from you, I am really looking forward to see what you all will be doing with it.
So what did we learn this week? Well, we learned that there's a sweet new interface for dedicated engineering terminals aboard spacecraft. That the first implementation of armor and damage penetration means that the ways that you kill and keep your spaceships alive will fundamentally change. And that when this arrives in the PU, life aboard spaceships will never be the same again. Now, that's it for this season of Inside Star Citizen, while everybody here turns their focus towards the upcoming CitizenCon, where we'll be showcasing the future of Star Citizen beyond Alpha 4.0. Yes, it's a show you're not going to want to miss. So from the small team that makes every ISC, thank you so much for letting us stretch our proverbial wings this year. Thank you for continuing to let us share the people and process of game development with you, and we'll see you all back here after the big show. I can't believe we got to.
Thank you for cutting.
Gee, Oh, Warriors.
Not that good again.
I was going to say, when they cut him off there, it kind of reminded me of PS4 Pete. He does that to me all the time. He goes, oh, something really important I've got to tell you, and then he just disconnects. So yeah, if you're watching this, Pete, that reminded me of you. Man, so much there to unpack. I kind of put this straight into the comments, and I'll say, are you excited or scared? And my initial thing is, the people that are scared, that I kind of mentioned before, are the combat people. This is a massive change to everything they've understood. But if you're not a combat person and you're into the utility and all the other things like you mentioned earlier, Algared, this is exciting as hell, because it's the other side of the coin.
Well, the fact that we've got armor coming in makes ships like the Terrapin. Now we know also why the Terrapin's been getting weak. Like,
absolutely,
armor coming in makes the Terrapin an absolute
game
should
changer.
make it a beast, a game changer. In terms of what it tries to do. Any ship with armor becomes better than a ship that's got lower grade armor, if everything else seems on par. So it becomes a really, really nice thing. And the other thing I picked up was, they were talking, if I heard right, you can repair, if you've got the right equipment, you can repair a totally damaged system component and bring it up to so it'll work again.
Not quite to full, but
not to 100%, but you can actually you could be soft dev, crash on a planet, soft dev. You could, if you've got resources, you can repair your ship.
I think
and get it off the ground again. And
I think that ships like the Crucible and the Vulcan, that's where their repair will come in.
And that's where they're going to excel.
Yeah. Algared, with all the stuff that we've heard in the last couple of ISCs, this is the type of stuff we used to see at a Citizen Con.
I know. So
I am now
harsh
scared, harsh hyped at the same time, going, if this is what they're sharing, what the hell are we in for? It's really scary, as in anyone that's been here for any length of time will be asking themselves the same thing, because other Citizen Cons have been bare bones as hell at this time. And it's like, are you stuffing with my head? Like, because this is just it means they got too much to share, which is the opposite of they've ever had before.
In the past, you do an ISC before Citizen Con, and it would have been a fluff episode.
Yeah.
This was not a fluff episode.
No. Not
For
at
the
all.
last ISC before Citizen Con, this was not a fluff episode. This was...
There was more in that than the Citizen Con panel, and there was more than that in the ISC at the beginning of this year that was also on engineering. So that just is... But you can see the progression. You can see the 1, 2, 3 from Citizen Con, you know, and as that makes that sound like it's not that far away. And I know it was meant to come in a couple of patches ago, but you can see why it hasn't. It's been refined and reworked and polished. And
the other reason you can see why it hasn't is because it had so many far-reaching applications. It was touching armor. It was touching. It was touching. So all of those,
all interconnected.
Repair, salvage, armor, all of those areas were being interconnected and tied into it, and that's why it's taken so long.
Yeah, some of its parts. Yeah. What do you want to hear from people in the comments? So, as I said, I want to hear, you know, are you excited, scared, type of thing, because it is a massive change. So, but what about you, Algared?
Yeah. Well, again, what are you looking forward to? What ships are you looking forward to flying with this new system? Are you still a fighter jock? Are you still into, you know, just using a little ship? Are you keen to be on a larger ship or use your fighters with larger ships? So what are you looking forward to? And how are you going to cope with engineering?
Yeah. Do you think it helps separate all the ships out? So even ships that previously looked very the same, can you now start to see the little intricacies that are going to separate everything out again? And look, even just armor, we've talked about that for years, but all this on top, it is very hard to hold it all in my head. I assume you're having the same problem, because it is like a jigsaw piece trying to, and we're starting to see that picture form now of what it's going to be.
Indeed.
I'm excited for that a lot. I think it's going to be.
I have a feeling we'll be talking a little bit about this on ISC on our stream
tomorrow. Yes.
Tomorrow.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
there's a lot in it to unpack, and certainly I think
Yeah.
I'll go back and watch this this afternoon again, just so I can
be ready for tomorrow.
absorb. And don't forget, if you do have questions,
Yep.
put them in the comments.
Algared tends to grab them
I'll
out.
try to fish them out so we can at least deal with them and explore them in more detail tomorrow. And
all right, with
so
that,
if you do put a question in, join us at the live stream.
Yeah. All right, with that, or at least check the live stream out because your question might get answered there. All right, with that, then don't forget to like, subscribe, ring that notification bell, and thank you to everyone at the end of the video that went back tomorrow on Patreon because you definitely helped get us to CitizenCon this year. We had some extra costs.
Indeed.
With that, then he's been Algared.
He's been Execute, and we're out of here. Take care.
See you, citizens.